The children had no idea where they were going. The wagons wound their way along the rutted trail that pushed across the Dakota prairie. It was almost the moon of the changing season. The drivers of the teams were fathers and uncles and grandfathers all, chiefs and headmen of the tribe who guided the plodding convoy toward what they called the Mud River. The wagon beds were laden with teepees for the nights they would spend on the road, but the elders were most concerned about the rest of the cargo they carried. Neither dried beef, nor cut boards, nor rolls of bright calico, but their very sons and daughters. A few boys rode alongside on saddle mounts. It was almost 200 miles to the river from Pine Ridge. Their spotted and prancing ponies were the last form of locomotion the children had even recognized on the longest trip of their lives. It had only been days before, at the agency, that some Indian boys dressed in strange clothes suddenly appeared. They were with white people who passed out candy to the children and promised them a new suit of clothes if they would go away to a place called school. They didn't force them exactly. A loud white man walked around and made a long speech, asking permission of the parents and making a lot of big promises. Some were less trusting than others, but it wasn't long before most parents were watching as their children stood in line to be poked and prodded by a white man doctor. He looked in their eyes, listened to them breathe, checked their pulses, and each time made little black marks on a long roll of paper. They only picked the ones they thought would survive. The parents whose children were chosen gave away blankets and ponies to the needy of the tribe. Then they hitched their teams and headed east for the river, a journey that would take many days. But they arrived too early for the send-off. It was another day or two of waiting before the steamboat lumbered down the winding river from the north, pushing and paddling its way along the current like a big wooden swan belching black smoke, and finally docking at the meeting place the Lakotas called the Black Pole and the white men knew as Rosebud Landing. It was already dusk. The boatman put the gangplank down and called out their names. Plenty Kill, Packs the Dog, Cloud Shield, Makes Himself Run. One by one, the young people from Pine Ridge and Rosebud walked up the plank, their parents and families weeping as they parted. Only about 80 were allowed to board. A white man would later remember unauthorized children stowing away on the ship to avoid detection, tribal runaways of a sort. The Lakotas would recall instead the youngsters who refused to go and stood timidly on the dock, frightened to take the first step in a journey that wouldn't end for 1,000 miles. The two sides saw different things, as they always did and always would, while the boat pushed off from the Black Pole on a trip that wouldn't end until they reached the far side of the country.